Assalamu alaikum, inshallah you're well guys. So there's a lot of negativity around the audit sector. The sector isn't well paid, firms haven't been doing a good job leading to fines from the Financial Reporting Council, and lots of people working long hours leading to burnout. And I want to provide some perspective, so inshallah in today's video, we'll go through some of these negativities in more detail so you can make an informed decision. First thing we're going to speak about is pay, because we all work for money, right? And if you're a Big Four auditor working in London, you can expect an average starting salary of around 30k, which would be less if you're working in a regional office. That sounds decent, but to be honest, you can earn more in other areas of finance. So an obvious example is investment banking, where you can earn a ton of money, but it's impermissible in Islam, so I don't promote careers in investment banking. But you've also got consulting, where if you start your career with Accenture, you can earn a starting salary of around 33k, plus a 10k bonus. And let me tell you now, you're not going to be earning a 10k bonus as an audit graduate. However, an auditor's salary does increase to around the 50 to 55k mark as you progress through your scheme and become a chartered accountant. So around 3 years later if you're a grad, or 5 years as an apprentice, you can expect to be around double on what you started on. Now, although I mentioned you can earn more in other areas of finance within most service lines, there is only going to be around a 5 to 10k difference. So it shouldn't have a huge bearing on your decision or whether you want to go into audit. So if there isn't a huge difference between service lines, where is all the negativity coming from? And there's two reasons for that. The first one is the disparity in pay, especially at the partner level. So as an audit grad, you can expect to earn around 30 to 50k. A newly qualified associate will earn around 55 to 60k. As a manager, you can be on around 65 to 80k, 85 to 100k if you're a senior manager. And then the pay varies. If you're a director, I'd expect you to be on around the 130k plus mark. And if you're a partner, you can earn from around 750k to £1 million. Now, I have to make clear, guys, that those were rough guidelines if you're working in the Big Four. Obviously, your actual earnings can vary. Now, imagine being an audit grad. You're doing all the dog work. You're getting the pushback from the client, dealing with all of the review notes, and your partner is only visible in a few client meetings, and they're earning over 20 times more than you. Of course, that's going to bring you down. Now, obviously, I know partners do a lot of work to justify their earnings, but I'm just talking from a junior employee's perspective. Second reason is work-life balance. So you can end up working a lot of hours in audit during busy season, which can vary depending on the year end of your clients, but can last for around 6 months of the year. And during busy season, you're under pressure to deliver audits within strict deadlines. So it's not uncommon to end up working 60 to 70-hour weeks. And if you're not being paid for those overtime hours, on an hourly basis, you may feel like you're being paid less than, say, a warehouse worker. And I don't agree with this. If you're working long hours regularly, then you should be getting back either time off in lieu or being paid overtime, which some of the smaller firms are great at doing. One thing to bear in mind is that long hours aren't just limited to audit. It can happen in any service line. Inevitably, you may have to work long hours to get the job done. Now, there is a mindset change coming, especially with Gen Z grads joining firms. But my advice for Gen Z is be mindful. You don't have much representation in senior leadership, so management may not share your views at this stage on work-life balance. Unfortunately, for the time being, presenteeism will still remain a thing. Then there's a lot of negativity that you hear in the press. So recently, Big Four firms have been fined for doing poor audits. Eddie Stobart and Carillion are good examples. Not only firms, but individuals have been fined too. And in the case of Carillion, a junior auditor was facing the prospect of a £50,000 fine. That person unfortunately took part in forging a document, but their defense was that they were simply following manager's instructions. In the end, they didn't receive a fine, but they were severely reprimanded, which I think was the best outcome. I worked in audit for several years, and I know that juniors sometimes face pressures to simply do as they're told, without really understanding the why. Now, you may be thinking, I don't want to work in a sector where I could receive a fine, but I have to be clear. When things go wrong, the partners are the ones who receive the brunt of the punishments and fines. And negative press isn't just limited to the audit sector. Think about the recession in 2008. That was blamed on the banking industry. And look at consultancy, where many firms are implementing redundancy programs. During COVID, there was a spike in consultancy work, which meant there were more hires. But now that work has dried up, so many firms are shedding their teams. So to summarize, there's disparity in pay when you compare to senior leadership, and the work-life balance means that you feel underpaid compared to other sectors, but there are firms out there who offer paid overtime and time off in lieu. Secondly, the work-life balance isn't great, but sometimes you have to work long hours to get the job done. The problem with audit is, unfortunately, that can become the norm, which you may be willing to accept at the beginning of your career, but not later on when your priorities can change. Thirdly, there's negative press around audit, but other sectors in the past have faced the same issues. This negativity doesn't impact you personally. Inshallah, this video has made things a little bit clearer. You should now be looking for similar content on other careers and service lines before you make a decision on which areas you want to go into. As always, any questions or queries, please feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram.